welcome to our job searching during challenging times. I am joined here with three of our Kelley employer partners. I'm really excited to have them on. They're going to be sharing some advice and also talk a little bit about how their companies are adapting and reacting to the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm joined by Lauren, AJ, and Alicia, and I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves. Lauren, will you go ahead and start and tell your name and also where you're working and your job title?
Yeah, so my name is also Lauren. Rodimel is my last name, and I work for Total Quality Logistics. We are a third-party logistics company. We're the second largest here in the U.S., and I'm a national sales recruiter, so I recruit nationwide for all 57 of our offices.
AJ, you want to head up next?
Yeah, so I'm AJ Walker, and I am an HR business partner for First Merchants Bank. So my role as an HR business partner, I align to our private wealth and commercial banking groups, and really am the partner to the business, as the title would suggest, for all things human resources. So from talent acquisition to talent management to development and everything else talent related that you can think of.
Awesome. Alicia?
Hi, I'm Alicia Madlam. I'm an executive vice president at a digital advertising firm called StatWax. We have an office in Fishers and an office in Dallas, Texas. My role is really to recruit and hire everyone who comes onto our team. So I'm the first person that anyone who works for us speaks with, and then work with our team leads as they go through the hiring process.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. I want to kick things off with a question that's kind of general. Just how is your company right now responding with the COVID-19 outbreak? And that can include anything from internal or external things like how your hiring processes work or changes in office environments.
Sure. I can go first. So we actually were in the middle of hiring some folks when all of this happened. So luckily it was for our office in Dallas. So we are used to doing remote recruiting and hiring. That was actually not too bad of a transition for us. But actually at the end of our hiring process, a lot of things are in person because we want the team to get to see the office and know the folks. And so we immediately transitioned all of that to remote. But for us, we have all of our folks working remotely from home right now. We're smaller, so that wasn't as big of a transition for our people. There are only 15 of us, so that works pretty well for us. But a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of video conferencing. Specifically to hiring, we moved the entire process to phone and video interviews. That was everything from panel interviews to all of our skills assessments. We're doing everything through video and online now, which is a little bit of a change from what we used to do. Sending our folks at home. We are following all state and city guidelines, and because we can telework very easily, we'll probably be at home through May, just trying to balance between the two states that we're in and all of their requirements. So those are the biggest changes that we've made so far to things that are happening right now.
And I'll go second. I feel like TQL is very similar with that. We are definitely larger. We have over 5,000 employees. So we work right now about 88% from home company-wide. It is optional because we are an essential business, has been very helpful to continue business as usual. So you can work in our offices depending on if there has been cases or not. We've definitely been aware of that side of things and keeping with the state limits and things like that. But being an essential business, we needed to be there for our customers 24/7, 365. So there has been a huge adjustment company-wide with phones being available to work from home, servers, having everybody have the accessibility to the best, I guess, format for our customers at all times. So that's been an adjustment to not all be in the office and have our collaboration as usual, just the same with our interview process. We also liked to bring in people to our offices to see the environment, see what we do every single day and be able to shadow. So that has been an adjustment on our end. We have videos that we have now had all of our candidates be able to watch. We've switched everything to virtual for chats and also the assessments. We have assessments through our process as well. So that's been an adjustment, but we have not stopped hiring. We are still hiring for future start dates. We have a start date here on the 20th, so on Monday, that we're getting people into our offices for. We have taken steps to keep it as COVID-19 friendly, so keeping that distance, doing the social distancing as much as possible or throughout the entire day. It's going to be different for us on day one on Monday, but we are still actively being as proactive with our business as possible and keeping everything as normal as we can right now.
Yeah, so for First Merchants Bank, we are also considered an essential service. And so we have a number of our branch employees in particular. So our consumer banking staff are mostly still in the branch network. Now, the branches have gone to a drive-up only and by appointment model. And then in our other lines of business, private wealth and commercial banking, we're really exercising our creative muscles around how we meet with clients. You know, the crisis is not only a health crisis, but one that's taken an economic toll. And so you can imagine that our private wealth clients are pretty concerned about what's going on in the markets right now. And as folks with a lot of assets with our bank, we need to be there to help guide them through and make sure that they're achieving their financial goals and that we're protecting that future for them. So we've been leveraging a lot of mobile and online technologies like Zoom and other technologies to help us in that meeting with clients. You know, we've been fortunate enough that as of right now, our business has not been largely affected by the pandemic. However, you think about a bank and our clients are those businesses that are being affected, that we hear about, those very exposed small to mid-sized businesses who are being affected, and that will roll up to us. So we're trying to prepare for that as best we can. Working in a remote environment has been challenging, as we all have experienced. Not having that human connection, that physical presence with someone is certainly a challenge, whether that's a client or a coworker. And we've all been working through that together. So whether it's taking deliberate steps to make sure employees understand expectations working from home. And when I say expectations, our employees tend to overwork themselves from home. And so expectations around maintaining their personal healthiness and well-being are super important to us. You know, we don't get a lot of built-in breaks throughout the day when we're working from home, at least not the same as when you have someone pop into your office and discuss a new topic. It kind of gives you a mental break. So we're having to retrain ourselves and retrain our employees to give themselves that break and to connect with each other again through, you know, mobile and online technologies. So the way that's rolled into the candidate experience, we are being precautious around hiring, but we have not stopped hiring, and we are making sure that our managers are equipped with the right tools to do as much online as possible, but we are also still bringing candidates in. And so we're pushing that back later in the process and maintaining social distancing while we're doing that. But we do feel it's important to have a face-to-face with the folks that we're bringing on board. So we're getting there, and the pandemic has certainly forced us into the direction of remote work, and many of us are coping with that as best we can.
Absolutely. And I think I hear this theme across all of us is just being able to be flexible, especially since things are changing on every day, every hour, it seems, especially in the first few weeks we started working from home too. Thank you guys for touching on, you know, some of those ways that your organization is moving forward. I'm curious, does your company plan to conduct any kind of virtual career fairs or other recruiting events, maybe online or the latter?
Yeah, I will start. So for us, we have not talked about specific like virtual events to meet people online. Um, it would still be the start of our funnel is very similar to the way it's been traditionally, which has been an online application, and where candidates see the first difference in our process today is really the first on-site interview has now been moved to an online video. So that's the difference. That's the first part of our process where we're experiencing a difference.
Yeah, we have not discussed it yet. We're really looking still in the like 2 to 3 month chunk of time. Because we're smaller, we really only have a couple of interns during a semester, sometimes as low as one. So our timelines aren't as long to find people. So we just started having conversations today as our executive team about online internships. So actually not having any interns in our office, but attempting to do our internships fully remote. And talk about the pros and cons of that. One of the things we love about internships is they show the environment. You get the chance to see what that physical work environment is. We are not an essential business. So for us, we are choosing to work from home and we have the ability, but we cannot have people into our office. However, our building is a bank building. So we rent an office in a bank building. So we could probably try to finagle that if we wanted to. But for us, we've started talking about if this goes longer, if we are still going in and out of stay-at-home orders through both of our states, what would it look like to give a fully online internship type experience? And right now we're going through a fully online onboarding, which will include this person's first month will be fully working from home because they're going to work at our Texas office and their stay-at-home orders go through May 20th. She starts May 4th, so she will fully start online. So that's sort of the way we're taking a look at it. Similar to AJ, we're taking more of sort of an account-based marketing ABM approach where we're, instead of going big, we're going much smaller from the number of events we're looking through for people through and trying to do it more on a smaller scale so we don't have as many candidates to get through. So that's what we've talked about for us in this sort of 2 to 3 month time frame that would get us maybe through the summer, right, edging up to the fall, and then see where we're going to be at August, September, and through the end of the year.
Awesome. And Alicia, does that also extend to full-time opportunities as well with consideration with onboarding?
Yes. So again, when we onboarded in our Texas office, it was always fully remote, but all of our onboarding for our folks in Indiana, once you got to the start date, everything was in the office. But all of our 2-week onboarding until that day was always been remote. So for us, it hasn't been that big of a deal, but we've been talking a lot about what would it look like to bring on someone full-time here where the majority of our folks are, and they start at home. So all their interaction is this. So that's the planning that we're doing right now is how many videos can we record? How many live sessions do we want? And tweaking the materials we already have to really, it's not about them learning what we do. It's them feeling that connection. We want them to feel a part of our team, even though they're coming on and not coming into a room full of people. So that our talk track is really coming from that point. It's not coming from learn this about us or know this about this skill. It's really like, we want you to feel like you're part of this group. And we've been doing lots of group activities to keep our current people connected. So how do we get those folks into that pipeline of connection to our whole team as quick as possible? And then inevitably when we go back to the office, then they don't feel like an outsider, like they were the only person that didn't know about all these things. So a lot of our talk tracks have gone down that piece of brainstorming all of the ways we can get people to feel that way through 2 weeks of onboarding before they ever start. And then at least a month after that, they'll probably all be working by themselves in their homes.
Gotcha.
Lauren, just to make sure I answer this question the best way possible, I guess I want to clarify, are you talking about events with students as they're doing their job hunt in this kind of time like this, or are you talking about events within our company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what I'm kind of considering are similar to events like this, but even maybe like virtual recruiting events where you're actually going to participate and have a virtual career fair, for example. We're seeing more and more of those pop up as ways that people want to reach and access talent.
Yeah, so for us, unfortunately, we aren't really looking into anything like that kind of career fair maybe outside of our process, interview process. For us, we're very similar, like AJ mentioned, with an application. We'll start there and introduce kind of what we do and give them a good idea for what it would like to be joining our team. So we are still sticking to that structure. But I think just personally, events like this, it gives students that opportunity to have their voice heard, questions answered. I'm really big on maybe giving tips about how they can maybe adjust resumes moving forward, because that is, instead of meeting in person, one of their only ways to communicate with future employers now. Going through how to network virtually, since that is going to be now a different challenge to face. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely open to hosting or being a part of an event like those two, for example, for candidates or people that are looking for new positions at this time, this weird stage.
Yeah, it's definitely very strange. And luckily, we are going to be talking about both of those topics here in the future on our little chat. We did have a question pop into our chat box here. Someone wanted to know if you're familiar with any MBA rotational programs that might be offered at your company, if that is something that you all have as potential opportunities.
Yeah, I can start. We do not have a formal MBA rotational program. We have a number of positions that prefer MBAs, a number of positions that that we have MBAs sit in. It really depends on what someone's wanting to do in their career in terms of how that person would fit into our organization. So. From an MBA standpoint, it also depends on the work experience. So, we have a number of MBAs who may come in directly to a relationship management role in our commercial banking group, or they may do investment portfolio management. There's really a number of positions that we would have available for someone with that skill set. It just depends on the desires of that individual, but we don't do an active rotation of MBAs.
Yeah, same for us. We don't have anything formal. I think the biggest thing that we're learning through this process is anything formal is getting blown up anyway, for us to fill needs and for us to meet the needs of what the public health crisis is having us do. So for us, a lot of formality that we've had has kind of gone out the window, and we've been trying to shape the process for the best experience that still gets us the candidate we're looking for. So we're a little bit too small to have anything that formal. For us, it's a lot looser in what we're looking for, both from a degree standpoint and from something as formalized as a rotational program.
And for TQL, to kind of give everyone that is in this chat an idea, we hire mostly for sales positions. We are a sales-driven company. Even though we're in the logistics industry, we are mostly ran by sales executives to provide our service. So we do not have any requirements when it comes to a college degree. As long as you have a high school degree, you are able to be considered for our sales role, being a little bit more entry level. So there is no requirements when it comes to what you've studied and what level you are at for education. So for us, obviously that means that we do not have any kind of program like that.
Okay. Thanks so much for giving us that perspective there. I want to talk a little bit about showcasing skills, and I think we kind of touched on this. With kind of remote work being the new normal now, and possibly moving forward, we aren't sure what that looks like either. What kind of skills are you looking for, and maybe even qualities in a candidate when you're considering their ability to do remote work? How do you evaluate that? What are you looking for?
That's a good question. So unlike the other two panelists, all of us are working from home right now. And so that was a big shift for a lot of our people. Even though we had offered it, we were mostly an office-based company, so we could collaborate, right, have the right teamwork. And we have a lot of folks on our team that this is their first job, and we basically flipped a switch on them. For all of you to know in this chat, we went to work on Monday, all of the orders came down Tuesday, everybody was at home, and we haven't been back. So that was a big transition for them. So we had to provide a lot of resources for folks to feel like they could be successful. So for us, what we're looking for, in addition to the skills we look for in any good employee, communication is probably the number one for us right now. So that people feel supported. It's not a big brother, we need to know what you're doing all the time. It's that we understand everybody's in this isolated state and everybody deals with that differently. And so communicating both out, here's what I'm doing, but also here's what I need. It's really hard for people a lot of times to be vulnerable enough to say, here's what I need, especially a new employee or a younger employee. It's very tough. They feel like that translates to, I don't know what I'm doing. And so we've had to have a lot of coaching and lunch and learns around, here's how to be vulnerable, here's how to communicate in this way, here are ways you can reach out. We started a self-care list so people could feel like, here are all the ways I can contact my managers, my employees. So communication has been number one. Flexibility, as you mentioned, has been number two. I think it's understanding that work at home looks very different from work in the office. It's actually, to me, a lot closer to what college is like, where you go to a class and then you go home and you have to structure when you get your stuff done and nobody's checking in on you. That's how this is. Now, that doesn't mean we leave you to just Wild West on your own, but we can't see you. Like, we can't see what you're doing. And so there's a lot of trust that goes into that, but there has to be flexibility on your part to understand that I might have to move my pieces of my day around. And as an organization, flexibility has been huge for us too, because we've had to say, folks with kids at home, if you work for 2 hours in the morning and then you have a 2-hour block where you need to be doing lunchtime or nap time, we're okay with that. It's not 9 to 5 sitting in front of a computer anymore. That's just not how this works at home. And so my two biggest are communication and flexibility. In addition to everything else we have going on, you have to be patient and kind of roll with the flow and give yourself some grace. We had this conversation. We have it at least once a week with our whole team. There's a permission slip to you that says, if you want to work from 7, for us, it works from 7 to 4 and go do some self-care from 4 to 5, do it. This time requires that so much. So communication and flexibility have been our top 2 pieces of advice to our folks as they made this transition into that work from home environment.
I know that Alicia mentioned the word trust. For us, I would say dependability on our employees to keep that work ethic as high as it was in the office when you had people around you. We're not really micromanagey as a company itself. There's a lot of freedom and autonomy in the roles that we do hire for, but being able to keep that attitude and that work ethic that you had from the beginning into a position where you now are from home, you have a lot more freedom, being able to depend on our employees to still have the ability to do their job fully, which we have provided systems-wise. Thankfully, TQL has spared no expense for us to be able to do our job fully from home. So we still have that expectation on them. Can we depend on them to still perform at the ultimate levels that we expect? So I would say that that is a quality that we're looking for in future employees and then also current employees that we have staffed with us.
Yeah, I really think Alicia and Lauren both nailed it. I'll just reiterate, I think that the trust is a huge thing, and I think it flows both ways. So it's understanding that when you join our team, you're trusted, and you're trusted to do your job and do it well. But you also have to follow through on that, right? So and extend that trust and that grace back to your employer in terms of realizing that, hey, we've all been thrown into this new situation. I can tell you at the bank, although we have some people still in our branches, those that are not in the branches are people that maybe worked from home one day a month when they had an appointment and it was just more convenient to work from home, or they were offsite at a client, here and there working offsite. It's really a new normal for all of us. And so I think that cuts in both directions, and really Alicia highlighted that the communication piece is huge, understanding that we're not mind readers when we're in the office. We're even worse at it when we're in 2 physically different locations. And so that communication is huge. But having the trust both ways, being someone that has empathy for understanding that their situation is going to be a little bit different than their coworkers' situations, and understanding that we all have obligations that we need to take care of, whether that's a family or self-care or whatever that is. Our days are all going to look a little different. They're not going to all sync up quite the way they did when we were in the office together. And so that flexibility is super important.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's really great to hear. I want to switch the conversation a little bit to talking about application materials. In particular, I want to talk about the research that students might be doing on companies, so that way they know the positions they're applying for and understand what the openings are requiring of them. And since that's so imperative nowadays, especially too with the job market getting a little bit more competitive, what role does that research play in documents like resumes and cover letters? How do you look at someone's resume and tell it's super generic versus someone's cover letter that is very customized? What impression does that set for you?
For me, it's now even more important than ever. So I'm the type of person, whether or not I'm good at it, I'll let others be the judge, but I like to be in the same room as someone. I like to see the way that they respond. I like to be able to influence them and understand how they're receiving my communication. We don't have that luxury today. And so if I am on the application side of a job, I really need to convey that through the written materials that I'm submitting up front. And I think that's always true, but it's even more true today than ever. And so, being, if you don't feel like you can take a half hour or an hour and customize a cover letter and a resume to a position that you're applying for, don't apply for it. Because if you don't want to spend that time up front, it's probably not a position that you would be happy in long term anyway. And so find the positions that really do spark an interest, that raise your passion, that you can't wait to put on paper how well you fit that position, and then carry through with that and carry that into your interviewing as well. And I think it'll show through, and those are the opportunities that really you'll be in consideration for.
Yeah, it's definitely more important than now, because the reality is 2 months ago, there were a lot of positions and not a lot of people. So people had their pick. The applicants had their pick. Now there's a whole lot of people and not a lot of positions. And so you have to be able to stand out, and showing that you cared enough to learn a few facts about the company or the interviewer can sometimes, when we're going through a lot of resumes, just automatically put you in that, yes, let's explore further pile. And so I think a couple ways that I've seen it come through, and a couple of ways not to do it. A couple ways to see it come through is always look at the job description and see if there's keywords in there that pop out to you that you can translate into something onto your resume. There's a lot of ways to tell that things are copy and pasted because they're generic. There's nothing that says specificity to the job or to the company. So start with the job description. It's a really good way to see what they're looking for. They wrote it specifically to find you. And that's the key point. Our goal isn't to keep people out of jobs. It's to give people jobs. And the job description is the first place we start to help you do that. Objectives being specific if you have them, and I'm sure we all have different feelings on those, but if you're going to write a personal statement or a summary or objective, please make it specific about the job or the company. Please don't make it generic. So I think those are a couple first ways that you can do it, just even from the resume stage. I will also admit to you all that I'm usually virulently anti-cover letter. But I think in this time, my view on it has changed because there's less opportunities to tell your story, that as AJ was touching on, and a cover letter is that place. So that place is the place to be very specific. Here's what I saw and why I want to work there. Here's why I think I fit there. Give me specificity. A couple of things on the don't side, I feel like that usually comes out in the interview process. It's when we get through talking on a phone call is the first thing, and somebody asks me, so tell me what your company does. No. If you can't at least say something to me like, I read on your website that you do XYZ. Is that correct? Now I'll answer that question, because what we do is probably not super obvious to a lot of people. At least give me something to go off of. So even if you're not sure, you can frame it as a way that shows that you've done the research and asked the question. But I think you really start to see that when you get to the actual interviewing process. When you come with your questions, make them specific about the company. Do a Google search and just page one, whatever's on page one is even all you have to do. If you know the interviewer's name, just go to LinkedIn and find out a few facts. Those of us who interview, we like talking and we like hearing stories. And so we like answering those questions. We don't feel like it's weird. It's not creepy. We want to talk about our companies. We want to talk about ourselves. And so I think that that's huge to just have a couple of those, like, tell me, I see StatWax focuses on 2 industries. Can you tell me why? Great. That shows me we went to our website. Just that's all that you have to have. And you don't have to have 20 of them. Have 5 of them and you might get to 2 of them. But those are the ways that are going to make you stand out, because they show that you care. What we're looking for right now is that you want to work here. If you don't do that research, it says, I really don't want to work here. I'm just applying because I need a job. And for us right now, we need people who really want to care, because it's a tough time right now for us as businesses. We need people who are all in. Like, they want to be in our team on this crazy wild ride of things like having people work from home and things going all over the place. It's truly chaotic for us to be businesses right now, because as AJ said, we're all in the same place right now. Usually when you go to a business, you got people of all these varying levels of experiences about something. We're all at square one and we're all just figuring out as we go along. We need people that are on that crazy wild ride, as wild as my gesticulations, which I'm just realizing how crazy they are, on this wild ride with all of us. So we need to know you care. So I think those are the biggest things that we would recommend to folks if you want to stand out and you want to show that you care.
Yeah. It definitely sounds like it feeds into all of the, the follow-up that happens within the organization, the interviewing part. I couldn't agree with that more. Lauren, did you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely back a lot of Alicia's points up. With the cover letter, I wouldn't say that we spend a lot of time on that, even at this point, but I agree with the fact of, if you go into our interview process with a lot of knowledge about just what we do, if you want to learn more, ask those questions. It won't seem like you don't have that knowledge, but just coming with the basics that shows that you want this type of position for the future. I would say that's a lot of what we're seeing now, is people are maybe looking for just a job in the meantime, especially if their industry that they really want to get into is not available at this time. Make sure you know why you're here. I think applying with intention is huge. So coming in with that mindset of, this is what I want to do and why this position I'm applying to fits my goals. So doing a lot of research will probably help you answer those questions. But the actual resume itself, when you're applying, I think customizing maybe your job experiences to what you're applying to would be huge on my end. Just making sure that it is applicable to the type of role that you're looking for, and customizing that for each job that you apply to, I think makes a huge difference. So maybe putting an effort piece in that and making sure that it is applicable to the position that you're focusing on, and not just, here's my experience, and it might not fit exactly with what that might be. So taking a few minutes on that, I think, for each application makes a difference.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And we really kind of answered my next question, how it affects the interview. So we can definitely move on. I wanted to ask, of course, social distancing, we're all on Zoom right now. A lot of people are feeling like networking is either challenging or just straight up impossible. However, LinkedIn's obviously proving to be a really great tool. We've always known that, but really it's stepped up in this environment. How are you guys using LinkedIn to stay connected with job seekers, or how have you seen job seekers utilize this, especially if you're kind of acting a little bit more on the observer end of things?
Yeah, I think for us overall as a company, our strategy has really shifted to a lot of content. We want to put out a lot of content about who we are and what we do. We don't want to try to sell people on anything right now. That feels icky and they're not open to it. We want people to know who we are and what we offer and what that looks like. And a lot of that has come through visiting us in our office or something like that where you can observe it. So we've been trying to push out a lot more content, talking about who we are. We've been using LinkedIn a lot more to showcase our skills or our people. We've really upped our Instagram game and tried to say, you know, here's how we're staying connected as a team. I'm sure all of you have seen it and been a part of it. Almost everything is just a Zoom screenshot showing us in various forms of interacting. But we've really been trying to showcase who we are through content a lot more. And LinkedIn is a really great way to do that, and enable us to showcase to people that we might attract to our jobs. And I feel like a lot of candidates have really started to try to make more meaningful connections. I think all of us have been through it. You will get a random connection from someone without a note, or someone that just says, it looks like we would be interested in the same things. And that's always been really tough to connect with, because you're saying, what do you want from me from this exchange? How can I help you? I don't know anything about you. And sitting on a couple panels like this, I've had students connect with me afterward with an actual thoughtful message that says, here's what I got from this. And here's, you know, would you be willing to talk to me about this? And I think that's been very helpful, because it helps us understand how can we assist those folks and what they're looking for, whether it's information, potentially connect them to someone else with a position open. Without that information, it makes it very hard. And we can't really necessarily meet up for coffee to get more information. We're doing all of this exchange that way. So far that's what I've seen personally from how people are using LinkedIn a little bit differently right now.
Yeah, I think the point that Alicia made around stating really your intention for the connection is huge. So, you know, I get several LinkedIn requests, a lot of them from, you know, people with a sales title. And as soon as I see that title, if they don't have a message, I think they're trying to sell me something, right? So I usually don't connect with them. And if I see someone who, you know, maybe they're a student and they don't send me anything to go along with that, I think, oh, this is someone who probably wants a job, but they're not taking the time to let me know what they're looking for. If it's a student who states, hey, I'm looking for this, or I noticed First Merchants is doing this, could you tell me more? I'd like to connect and better understand that. Oh my gosh, I would accept every single one of those, no question. And really do what I can to connect with that person and point them in the right direction, whether it's a job you know, that I'm connected to, or helping them with interview skills, or whatever that is, looking over their resume. People want to help, but they want to help. They don't want to be sold something. They don't want to be coerced into something. Just let them know your intention, I think, and people want to help. They want to be part of that story.
I think from TQL's point of view, or from what I've seen, is when we are posting on LinkedIn now, it is what we're doing in real time. So how we're adjusting to the pandemic, what we're actively doing with our employees, with keeping that social distancing while also being connected. So I think for job seekers, it's a really great resource to learn about the companies that you're applying to and how they're reacting to what's happening. So if you want to do that further research, go to their page and see what they've posted in the last month or two, because it speaks volumes about how the potential company that you're going to work for is adjusting to a situation like this, and is it something that you want to be a part of. So I would say my advice is to look at their page, not just do research on what the company is, but also see how they're posting, how their employees are posting in response to what's happening. And it'll give you a really good idea without getting into the office, how they've adjusted to everything. Because for us, we've done a lot of fun events. For Easter, we always did at our headquarters in Cincinnati, our employees coming there, 1,000+ employees, meeting the Easter Bunny with their kids, doing crafts. You know, it's a really fun day, but this year we couldn't do that. So they actually set up an event where you could go to the headquarters, and they had care packages to make cookies with your kids from home. Online, they had a link to access different games that you can play with them from home. So it was a totally different kind of environment, but it was an adjustment that we made to keep that tradition that we had with our employees. So it speaks volumes, I think, to see how these companies are reacting and continuing to do what they can for their employees. So doing that additional research will probably give you an insight without actually being into the office and seeing it firsthand now.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I never really thought about that, but we have even been doing that in our office about how we've been staying connected. So we've been doing it without knowing what we were doing. That's always really fun. Um, I want to switch us a little bit to talking about interviewing, and just to remind to all of our attendees, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. But with interviewing, since it's becoming the new normal, and that we've all identified we're doing phone, virtual interviews, a few sprinkling of in person, what kind of tips do you recommend that job seekers follow for virtual interviewing in particular? So something like Skype interviewing, Zoom interviewing, that kind of thing.
For TQL, we use a system that we've had for a very long time, even before this all happened. It's called HireVue, and it's probably foreign to most applicants. I highly recommend jumping on earlier than later to make sure it works on your device, because nothing is worse than being delayed because you weren't prepared to make sure that your device is compatible, or you can hear things, the microphone isn't broken. There's just so many different things that can happen. And then being virtual, it is still an interview, dress professional. I would say that's my biggest tip, is make sure that you're still acting like it's an interview. I know we're sitting from home and it's a weird kind of feeling where you feel comfortable, but we're still looking at you as a candidate. And I think putting your best foot forward is important.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So I admittedly kind of let myself down today. Normally when I do these panels in person, I have at least a sport coat and a tie on. I did go without a tie, although there was a heavy debate this morning around setting the example for you guys. So I would highly recommend, don't treat it as you are at home. Treat it as though you are going into the office of that employer. And free yourself as much as possible from distractions. Get in a place where you can be quiet. Now, as I said that, my dog literally just walked right beside me. So you can't always rid yourself of distractions 100%, particularly if childcare is an issue right now. That's tough, right? So I would be open and honest about that in the conversation. Hey, you might hear something in the background. It's my 4-year-old son, right? Try to eliminate that distraction, but also be real about it. So be still maintain that degree of professionalism that you would have in a face-to-face interview. Still be early, right? Still be prompt. Still be polite. Still have good posture. All of these things, they matter, and so treat it just like the real thing.
Practice is my advice. Put yourself on a video, tape it on your mobile, just turn on your Zoom for yourself and practice, because what you don't realize during video that you have to get used to is A, where do I look? Right? I can look at the camera, I can look at the person talking, and B, we all fidget a heck of a lot. And you have to realize that the other person can see you do that. And to me, it's more prominent than it is when you're in person. So it's like, I've tugged my hair, I've blown my nose, I've touched my face, and then you have the extra like, oh no, they're touching their face. And then you're like, you're not supposed to touch your face. And then our minds all go, off too. So I think it's getting used to like what to do with your hands. Where are you sitting? What's in your background? And just practice talking into a camera. This is weird. It took like probably a week to a week and a half for all of us to get used to talking to our computers like a person. And we work from home. Often we do Zoom calls with our clients, but it's still really odd. It's just not the natural interaction that you expect for that particular type of interaction. And so practice, just get used to it. Practice asking your questions and where to look and how you use your hands and how you're sitting. And do that a couple times before you jump on. I would give the same advice if you're going in person, because the same things are observed. It's just to think about, even though this is more casual, there's still the room for that practice. And always come prepared, have your questions, be ready to take notes. Don't be like reaching off camera, have to get up and walk to another room to go get something. Make sure you just have everything with you. Don't let the casualness of home creep too much into the actual exchange.
Thank you, guys. What kind of mistakes have you witnessed in virtual interviews that you think maybe our students could learn from?
I'm not sure that I've seen it in an interview, but some classics are the sound doesn't work appropriately, right? Or maybe you're doing something that's just over the phone and video's not included, and you neglect to think about the ambient sounds that are around. So I just I haven't seen any real big faux pas. But I do think that to Alicia's point, it's about practicing. It's about paying attention to the details. Don't let the casualness of home creep in too much. Treat it like an office environment.
I agree. I wouldn't say I've seen anything too extreme. I would think that what Alicia said with the setting of where you are is huge. I've had people on virtual chats where I can barely see them because they're in a dark room, or maybe in the background it's not extremely appropriate. I'm sure they had a better setting. So just making sure that you're aware that people can see where you are. I would say that's a big tip.
We once had someone vape during an interview, so I would not do that. But yeah, I think it's just awareness is the biggest thing. Like, be aware of the art behind you. Be aware of, if you go sit in front of a window, is it completely making it so we can't see you? It's just an extra level of awareness that probably most of us didn't have when we were just going to go into an interview, because you were going into someone else's environment. Now you have to sort of craft an environment for you that's quiet. It has no distracting images in the background of it. So most of the mistakes aren't things that are huge faux pas. They're just things we're not thinking of because it's not a usual situation. So if you take that time to practice and prepare, I think you get past it. And then we just have a conversation. But I haven't seen, aside from what I said, I haven't seen anyone do anything or say anything that was completely off the cuff. It's just little distracting things that happen like that you wish they had taken that extra few minutes to maybe just curate a space for themselves that made sense.
Yeah. I have one more thing to add. Sorry, Lauren.
Go ahead.
Eye contact is still huge, even though we're virtual chatting. The other day I had an interview that was half set like this, where he would be looking at something else and then look at me and then look at something else. So that's just a little odd. Just be aware that also we're looking to talk to you as if we're in person. So just one more thing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And just as a side note, Kelley has a virtual mock interview service that we offer. All of you have gotten emails from me about that. So you can practice everything that Alicia, AJ, and Lauren have talked about in these practice sessions, and also get the questions too. I'm happy to review those. If you send me the link, I'll give you feedback too. Awesome. I did want to kind of segue a little bit to a different question. Knowing that the idea of coming for an in-person interview is kind of finding this like culture fit. You come in, you get to meet people, you get to kind of have that little hallway banter in between moving from interview to interview. How do you recommend that job seekers can show their personality in this digital space?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think from the ones that we've been doing, it's also partially on the interviewer to set that tone a little bit at the beginning of a call when you come on to a video call. And we do this with our clients too. We don't just jump into here is everything. We still have to do the how are you? How is it going? And I think that's a little bit on the interviewer as well, to prompt some of that so that the person knows how to set that up. How do I talk about banter for a couple of minutes before I do an interview? So in my opinion, I put it a little bit on us to start by saying, how are you? How's it going? How are you doing? Is this your first virtual interview? And try to kind of break the ice. I think it's for candidates to be prepared that there's still small talk, even if it's not a face-to-face interaction. We get so much from small talk from folks that we're still going to try to find a way to do that. It's probably going to come at that beginning or at the end, where we say something like, hope you have a good rest of your day. Any big plans for when you jump off this interview, or how are you dealing with the fact that time has no meaning? Something like that, where you just really try to get a little bit of that banter when it is in the actual interview setting, where before usually that banter was you before or after you left that space specified area, those barriers don't really exist anymore. So I would say in this remote environment, just be prepared for maybe a few minutes of banter at the beginning of at the end for us to solicit that from you.
That's great advice. Thanks, Alicia. Anybody else?
You know, as you asked that question, I'll be honest, I think my heart sank a little bit in my chest thinking, oh my gosh, how will we do that if this continues? It's a real issue. And so, you know, on both sides, in terms of showing someone the work environment, the space, you know, the people that they'll be working with, I just hope that this is short term, because that is a real challenge, and I'm not sure that I have a real good answer for that.
Yeah, something to ponder, which is never a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the idea of office videos was a great idea. It's something we haven't done yet, but something almost virtual toury is a really good idea, because that's the part that it also breaks your heart a little bit, where you're like, you don't get to feel the energy of this space. And not to make that sound otherworldly, it's just, that's true. It's just as much as the thing that you do, your actual job function is just as important as the environment in which you do it. And so I think you're right. If this continues, we really have to get creative in ways that we show the environment, the way that people are in the environment, the folks that they might just observe and never interact with, just observe in the space. I think that's going to be one of our challenges for the longer this goes on.
Definitely. I think Lauren, I want to go ahead and let you talk.
Did you want to switch the topic?
I was going to switch it, but unless you have something to chat, then let's talk about it.
I was just going to add just one thing. From an interviewer point of view, I know that Alicia mentioned that we need to initiate that conversation sometimes, but also feel comfortable with asking questions about us too, so you can get to know your coworkers for the future. Ask managers about where they started, what they're doing now to adjust maybe outside of work, or just get to know the people that you're interviewing with. For us, we have multiple stages where you can talk not just with the recruiter or the HR individual, but you talk to your manager that you'd be working with directly. So being open to getting to know them too, even though this is an odd setting where you don't get that chance when you walk in as you're walking to the office to have that kind of conversation. Be open to that side and kind of making yourself a little vulnerable to talk about things that are not so professional all the time, but getting to know them is an important part as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just it is so much about getting to know you and interviewing anyway. So we almost forget that when we're in the digital space, trying to jump into the business when we need to have a little bit more personal communication there. I love that. One of my final questions, because oh my gosh, we are wrapping up here really fast. Knowing that the timelines for applications and hiring and onboarding are changing, I continue to have the conversation about resilience in the job search and keeping your head up, especially when the environment seems just really hard right now and just a lot of unknowns. So I wanted to kind of pose this question about what advice would you give someone if on how to stay resilient in this job search and how to stay positive as they continue through?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is reminding ourselves it's not me, right? This is a very unique time, and so the employer that's not being as responsive as you would like, or the job that you were at the last stage, or you had an offer and then it got pulled away, right? It's not you. It's not you. So remember what you're grateful for. Remember the education that you've received. Remember the skills that you have to offer, and persevere and keep moving forward. And there's going to be times where that's tough, but that's focusing on what we can do, focusing on the controllables is really all that we can do. And if you take some comfort in knowing you're not the only one, right? So everyone graduating this year is in this boat together. And the now 15% of the working adults that are no longer employed over the last 3 weeks, they're right there with you. And so it's not you.
Yeah, I agree with AJ. This has been tougher now than ever to make these decisions. Hiring wise, there are more candidates than there are jobs out there. So keeping that in mind, as well as it's tough for you, but it's also tough for us to be making these decisions and not being able to have the freedom that we had before to hire for these roles, because of start dates changing and these structures changing. So like he said, it's not just you. There are adjustments that are being made company-wide, with different industries that we are also adjusting to. That is a change than our norm. So being aware of that, there are hopefully going to be more opportunities that will open up once this kind of finishes out. So keeping that long-term stretch in mind, that this is not going to happen forever, and keeping that positivity as you're searching. It's not the end of the world. This is not going to be our long-term, hopefully, norm. Just keeping that positivity, I think, is also huge. I agree.
Yeah, I like worry about what you can actually control. And that's the resume that you give. That's the really good follow-up that you give. If you try to worry about the other stuff, that's when it starts to spiral a little bit. So I think if you keep yourself buttoned up and you say, all right, what are the things that are within my control? They're what I write, they're what I say, they're how I follow up, that will help. I think the second piece of advice that's built a little bit on what Lauren said about intention to apply, it might be a little bit of a mindset shift for a lot of folks. It's thinking about the skills that are in the job you want, not necessarily the place you want to work. There's going to be a lot of you that will use your skills in ways that you did not anticipate in order to get yourself on the right road to getting a job in this. That comes as someone who was looking for jobs in 2008, the last time that we had one of these things happen, and your journey isn't linear. It ends up looking like this a little bit. And so I think it's give yourself the space and the permission to say, I might have wanted to work at X company or an exact X role, and switching that to saying, okay, here's what I'm looking for in the job. Let me look from that level and see what those openings are, and then put myself maybe into a role or a job pipeline that I didn't actually think of a month or two ago, but it has all the skills I'm looking for. It's just a little bit different. Be open to that. I think that helps you feel like you have movement, because the biggest thing in this process is movement. A lot of you will send out a lot of resumes and you'll never hear back. As we mentioned, all of us are also having to deal with what does that look like. That's not best practice, but it's going to happen to you. And so if you're too narrow, if you're trying to keep yourself too focused, that will frustrate you very, very quickly. So just be open, and just a different approach to how you look at what kind of job you want. Look at it for, what do I want out of this, or what can I utilize, versus exactly what am I doing. There's going to be sectors right now that are going to be on huge hiring sprees: healthcare, technology, anything like a Zoom, right? And there might be people that are sitting there, they're like, well, I'm going to get an accounting degree and I really want to work at an accounting firm. We might need to switch your mindset and say, maybe I want to do accounting at one of these type of companies versus working at an accounting firm. Just open yourself up to that. And my last piece would be, ask for advice and help. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure all of us would be open to resume reviews, to making whatever connections we have, as long as it's a meaningful ask. We're here to help people. Don't be afraid to use every resource that you have. Family, friends, panels like this. We want to help just as much as you want help. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't feel like we're going to be overwhelmed with it. We'll let you know when we can get to it, if it's not going to be right away. But we also want to help people connect to open roles at our companies or other companies if you're not a fit. So don't be afraid to tap every resource that you can. Get creative with it.
I really, really appreciate that advice. And I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today. I know we are just at an hour, and wow, we went through a lot of different topics, had some really great discussion. But I think it sounds like all of you would be open to being connected to on LinkedIn. So please find these individuals. I'm connected with all of them, so you should be able to find them pretty easily too. Make sure you send a message. We've learned that's very important. But I want to thank you all so much. And we will have a recording of this saved to our YouTube channel, and we will be distributing that to our Canvas pages. So if you would like to share with family, friends, or other colleagues, please do that. But I will respect everyone's time and let you head out. Thank you all, and have a wonderful Friday afternoon.
You too. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Lauren, for having us.
Bye. Yes, thank you for having us.
All righty, I'm going to close.